This is the story of Melchizedek, the king of Salem, a figure as enigmatic as he is pivotal. Melchizedek is a unique character in biblical texts. He appears suddenly, meets Abraham, and then vanishes just as quickly. But the implications of this meeting are profound. In the book of Genesis, Melchizedek blesses Abraham, and in doing so, he introduces a concept of priesthood that predates the Levitical priests by centuries. His dual role as both king and priest sets a foundational precedent in religious history. As the sun sets over Salem, a solitary figure awaits. Robed in garments that reflect his royal and priestly stature, Melchizedek prepares to bestow a blessing that will reaffirm Abraham's journey and victories. With solemn grace, Melchizedek presents bread and wine to Abraham. These are not merely gifts of hospitality, but symbols laden with spiritual significance, representing sustenance and fellowship blessed by the divine. Melchizedek's priesthood, described as eternal in the Psalms and expounded upon in the New Testament's book of Hebrews, challenges and extends our understanding of divine mediation. He is both a historical and a theological bridge between old and new covenants. In the ancient city of Salem, amidst its bustling markets and sacred temples, Melchizedek reigned not only as a monarch, but also served as a high priest. This rare combination of roles is unprecedented in most historical and biblical contexts. Melchizedek's role as king and priest allowed him to bridge the secular and the sacred, giving him a unique position in the governance and spiritual life of his people. This dual authority is symbolic of his ability to mediate between God and man, and between man's earthly concerns and his spiritual aspirations. The fusion of royal and priestly duties in one individual is particularly significant. It implies a holistic approach to leadership that encompasses both the governance of state and the stewardship of spiritual welfare. Artifacts from the period depict Melchizedek with both the scepter of kingship and the incense of priesthood, a visual testament to his dual roles. These items are not merely ceremonial. They are imbued with the symbolism of power and divine connection. As king, Melchizedek would have wielded considerable political power, enacting laws and administering justice. As a priest, he performed sacred rituals and offered blessings, serving as a conduit between his people and the divine. By holding both roles, Melchizedek prefigures the figure of Christ, who Christians believe embodies the ultimate kingship and high priesthood. This typology is crucial in Christian theology, reinforcing Melchizedek's importance as a prototype of the Messiah. Thus, the legacy of Melchizedek as both king and priest challenges us to rethink the boundaries between secular authority and religious duty. His life poses profound questions about the nature of leadership and the responsibilities of those who are called to lead on both earthly and spiritual planes. Under the vast, ancient sky, where each star tells a story, Melchizedek bestows a profound blessing upon Abraham. With a voice that seems to echo through time and space, he declares, "Blessed be Abram by God, Most High, Creator of heaven and earth." This blessing is not merely a formality, but a divine endorsement that cements Abraham's role in the spiritual narrative of the Hebrew people and beyond. Melchizedek recognizes Abraham's obedience and faithfulness, linking him directly to the Most High God. As Melchizedek utters these words, there's a sense of something greater being invoked, a covenant between the divine and the earthly that would shape the fate of nations. This moment transcends a simple verbal exchange. It's a transmission of divine will. Melchizedek's blessing of Abraham is crucial because it publicly acknowledges Abraham's chosen status by God. It is also significant because it comes from someone outside Abraham's own tribe, which adds a universal dimension to his mission and the blessings promised to him and his descendants. This blessing reverberates through generations, echoing in the stories of Isaac, Jacob, and the tribes of Israel. It is a cornerstone of biblical faith narratives, underscoring the idea that divine promises are enduring and transcendent. As cultures and epochs have passed, this scene of celestial benediction has been depicted in countless artworks, liturgies, and teachings, each interpretation striving to capture the gravity and beauty of Melchizedek's words. His stars that glittered above them that night were more than mere witnesses. They were bearers of testament to a covenantal moment that would define eras. Melchizedek, through his blessing, not only honored Abraham, but also reinforced the continuity of a promise that spans the arc of time and faith. In a profound act of gratitude and recognition of Melchizedek's spiritual authority, Abraham selects a tenth of his spoils to give to the king of Salem. This act, known as tithing, is not merely a tribute, but a deep acknowledgement of divine providence and blessing. Abraham's decision to tithe to Melchizedek underscores a pivotal moment in religious history. It establishes a practice of giving back a portion of one's earnings or gains as a sacred duty and a form of worship. This is one of the earliest biblical instances of tithing, which becomes a cornerstone in the practices of faith that follow. As Abraham hands over these goods, his actions signify more than compliance to custom. They represent a covenantal exchange. This moment illustrates a tangible commitment to the spiritual relationship defined by mutual recognition of God's sovereignty and providence. In the context of the ancient Near East, tithing was also a common practice among various peoples as a way to honor gods and kings. However, Abraham's tithe to Melchizedek is distinct because it reflects not just cultural adherence, but a personal and theological commitment. This ancient practice, echoed across different civilizations and epochs, finds a unique resonance in Abraham's act. It not only cements his bond with Melchizedek, but also sets a precedent for future generations on the importance of dedicating a portion of one's blessings to higher purposes. Over time, tithing evolves into a fundamental element of religious and community life, supporting the functioning of religious institutions and aiding those in need. It fosters a spirit of generosity and communal responsibility that transcends centuries. As Melchizedek receives Abraham's tithe, their encounter solidifies into a legacy that would influence financial and spiritual exchanges in myriad faith traditions. The act of giving, so simple yet so profound, becomes a testament to their sacred encounter and a model for subsequent practices of faith. Declared a priest forever, Melchizedek's role does not end with his mysterious encounter with Abraham. Psalm 110, a text revered across Judeo-Christian traditions, speaks of a priesthood in the order of Melchizedek, a line that forever links him to eternal divinity. Psalm 110 is pivotal. It states, "You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek." This isn't just a reference. It's a divine proclamation that elevates Melchizedek's priesthood beyond his temporal existence, suggesting a perpetual and enduring role. As the psalmist pens these words, the connection between Melchizedek and the Messiah becomes clear. Here, Melchizedek is not only seen as a historical figure, but also as a prototype of Christ, who Christians believe fulfills this eternal priesthood. Melchizedek's priesthood serves as a template for understanding Christ's role in Christian theology. Just as Melchizedek was king and priest, so too is Christ recognized in the New Testament as both king and eternal high priest. This prophetic linkage underscores a theological continuum from Melchizedek to Christ, bridging the Old and New Testaments and enriching our understanding of divine mediation between God and humanity. In a gesture laden with profound symbolism, Melchizedek's offering of bread and wine to Abraham not only signifies hospitality and blessing, but also prefigures a cornerstone of Christian worship, the Last Supper. Melchizedek's gift of bread and wine carries with it layers of meaning that transcend the immediate context. For Christians, this act foreshadows Jesus' Last Supper, where bread and wine are consecrated as his body and blood, instituting the Eucharist. This prophetic act by Melchizedek embeds him deeply into the heart of Christian symbolism. The parallels between his offering and Christ's at the Last Supper highlight a thematic continuity that stretches back to the earliest days of biblical history. The ritual of the Eucharist, central to Christian liturgy, is a direct echo of Melchizedek's actions. This ritual connects believers to Christ, just as Abraham was connected to God through Melchizedek's blessing and offering. As bread is broken and wine poured in churches around the world, the lineage of faith that traces back to Melchizedek is renewed. This sacramental practice not only commemorates Jesus' sacrifice, but also recalls the ancient priest-king who blessed Abraham. By linking Melchizedek with Christ through the symbolism of bread and wine, we see a powerful example of typology in Scripture, where an Old Testament figure anticipates New Testament revelation. Melchizedek's simple act of sharing bread and wine becomes a theological prelude to key Christian doctrines. Melchizedek, described in the Scriptures as being without father or mother, without genealogy, without beginning of days or end of life, emerges not just as a historical figure, but as a symbol of eternity and divine mystery. This description sets him apart as a priest unbound by the typical human constraints of time and lineage. This portrayal of Melchizedek is profoundly significant. It elevates him beyond the realm of ordinary human existence into a symbolic representation of an eternal priesthood. Such a depiction prefigures Christian understandings of Christ as an eternal priest according to the order of Melchizedek.